Hi, friends, Gene Valentino, and welcome to another episode of Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. As you know, we have guests from all walks of life on the show each week: political, social, economic, spiritual. And this one's more on the medical side. This is juxtaposed the medical issues related to cannabis, THC, marijuana in general. And I have a wonderful guest, Anne Schlafly, who's with us. She's live with me from St. Louis, Missouri. Hi, Anne. How you doing?
I'm so glad to be with you, Gene. Thank you for having me on.
Well, it's a good to have you on as well. We're going to be discussing your book today, Throwing Children Under the Cannabis. I love the title. It's about time we had looked more deeply into this experiment of cannabis and THC, and as Anne refers to in her book, nipping it in the bud. And we're going to do that right after we return.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Hi, friends. Welcome back. We're here with Anne Schlafly. She's written a great book entitled Throwing Children Under the Cannabis. Nipping it in the bud is what she's going to try to do. And what's the hot point to this book we're going to spend a little time talking about?
I think it's so important for people to realize what is the ulterior motive of the pot profiteers. They want to get the children hooked on this dangerous drug. They market to children. And we have, for the last 25 years, undergone this social experimentation of legalizing recreational marijuana across the country, starting in Colorado. And this has been without much oversight. And what has happened is that under the guise of medicine, with candy and fruit flavors, they lure children into an addiction with a dangerous drug. And we are seeing the consequences now, and they're dramatic. And we have a lot of families that are hurt from the proliferation of pot.
Yet in parallel, you see President Trump pulling it off. What is it? A class 1 scheduled rating to something more accommodating for regular retail use.
Yes, he moved it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 by executive order, and this was a serious mistake. This is really policy by podcasters, not a true scientific analysis, because the more you open up and say this drug is okay, guess what, Gene? The more people use it. The more teenagers think it's okay because it seems more acceptable to the adults to use. And that is not good. And where it's really bad by moving it to Schedule 3 is that impacts a lot of government regulations. So, for example, the Department of Transportation will drug test for Schedule 1 drugs. There is no requirement for them to drug test on Schedule 3 drugs. Do we want our over-the-road long-haul truckers on marijuana and not drug tested for marijuana?
Well, let's start by getting them to be Americans, licensed and legally able to read a road sign. But your point is well taken. I think our problem has been is that there's an inconsistency with it. I remember when I was in the payment processing business, we had a payment transaction underwriting issues related to the attempt to transact a THC or cannabis product on the internet. And it all boiled down to it being class one at the time and considered a felony to do so. Putting that aside, there was a complete, I would say, acceptance that it fell in line with medicine and therapy. And I see no evidence of that. I read your book, and what I found interesting is that it's doctor suggesting some level of use. I've never seen a prescription for the use of the marijuana or THC product.
You're absolutely correct. This is calling marijuana medicine was a way to get the camel's nose under the tent
Yeah.
of legalizing marijuana to say, well, it's just those for really sick. But you can get a so-called prescription for any ailment you want that you think marijuana might solve. But if you go to the doctor and he gives you a prescription for heart medicine or cholesterol medicine, guess what? There's a dosage. The doctor prescribes an exact amount that is appropriate for you to take. The difference with the so-called medical marijuana is that the patient is self-dosing. You would not self-dose on any other medicine and call it medicine. That's akin to self-dosing with a bottle of bourbon.
Yeah, that has happened more than once too. But the fact of the
It's not
matter is,
medicine.
it's not correct. It's not medicine. Staying on the topic, from a medicinal point of view, with men, it's affecting sperm count. With women, you've got pregnant and nursing mothers using marijuana permanently, and how it's affecting child development. You want to focus on those 2 points?
Yeah, I think this is very important and not publicized enough. And because I live in a city where pot shops have proliferated, and these pot shops actually recommend marijuana for morning sickness. Now, that is akin to fetal alcohol syndrome of what you're going to do to your baby if you use a THC product while you are pregnant or nursing. The baby will have a lower birth rate, a smaller head circumference, and a lifetime of damage of just inability to have cognitive development throughout the baby's life. And so the damage that can be done by using THC while pregnant and nursing is huge. But more recently, I found out of what it affects on sperm. It degrades both the quality and the quantity of sperm. So males and females who are interested in having babies are affected by this. If the father is on marijuana, it doubles the chance that of a miscarriage for the mother, doubles the miscarriage effect.
The medicine issue, where do they get the word medical marijuana then? If their doctors have no purpose in prescribing it, I don't get like you said, they get their nose partially under the tent. I get it. But it seems to be a miscarriage of the medical profession to be allowing this reference to exist. It gives the impression there's a basis by which there's a medical use.
I think it's worth looking at the history of tobacco. And
Please.
100 years ago, tobacco was introduced and marketed to Americans as medicine. It is a way to lure people into an addiction, is to say, well, this is good for you. This is medicine. And the tobacco companies actually used advertisements where they said 4 out of 5 doctors recommend this brand of tobacco. And of course, it was all a sham. No medicine can be smoked and still be medicine. because of the damage you do to your lungs by smoking. But once you get the people the idea that it is medical, then people are very easy to accept it as a part of life. Well, he's sick, he needs some help. The problem with this is that's not who the users are. The users are not the cancer patients. The users are teenage boys. And that's why we have a societal problem with marijuana today.
Talking with Anne Schlafly, who's also chairman of Eagle Forum, a not-for-profit organization. And you can explain that too if you'd like. But before you do, Anne, following your train of thought, what's going on with pregnant women and nursing mothers? Is this, what's going to, is the a consequence to children unspoken, unwritten, but worse than they purport it to be?
Well, if you recall, 50, 75 years ago, nobody thought anything about a pregnant woman smoking a cigarette or taking a drink. And today, happily for the babies, we do see that as a problem. And there's been great education on that. Well, we just need the similar kind of education on the dangers of THC products and what they can cause to these babies. So in the medical marijuana applications, there's no, medical marijuana doesn't come with the fine print list of side effects that all other drugs come with. And you need to know these side effects so that you can make a decision about what's best for your developing baby, and that you aren't hoodwinked and so sorry that you had this puff as to the lifetime consequences to your child that you're not aware of. So one state, Alabama, has done something that I think all the other states should copy, which is they have rules and regulations that if you are a woman of childbearing age and you get medical marijuana, you have to do a pregnancy test every 30 days. Now, that may sound onerous, but that's the exact same regulation that they do for Accutane. Accutane is an acne medicine that causes severe birth defects. And of course, nobody likes acne, and you want to take the drug to clear up your face so you look beautiful and you can go out on a date, but you can't do that if you're going to be pregnant.
Interesting. Well, can you distinguish between the consequences to babies in the womb versus the infants born? Is there a pattern of THC or marijuana abuse that reveals itself as a consequence in the child or infant?
Well, the first consequence is a smaller circumference of the head. And then subsequently there is poor brain development and poor cognitive development, and that usually shows up in the teenage years when the child is just far behind in developing. And then I think there is some evidence that you get some hyperactivity. Attention deficit disorders because they just don't have the brain capacity to concentrate.
I guess I'm going to have to speak liberal to figure out how they justify this abuse of the drug for the youth.
It's very simple. You follow the money.
Follow the money.
Follow the money. People want to make money off of it, and that is why they candy coat it. No medicine is candy coated. And when you look at these marijuana products, they come as gummies. They look like candy. They're marketed as candy. Well, you don't market candy to adults. You market candy to children because the marijuana profiteers want to get the children hooked because then they have a lifetime customers, just like the tobacco companies did.
And one of the things I read in your book, which I found very interesting, is that, and I didn't connect the dots, is that there's a connection between psychosis, schizophrenia, and the impact as a consequence of the abuse of THC or marijuana. in children and young teens. But, I've also noticed it in adults too. I mean, I've seen some uh, adults who hang their hat on the fact that I need it to calm my nerves, or I've got a little bit of emotional trauma. I'm going to take marijuana or PTSD. And as a consequence, there's what's the word? There's a reliance on the drug for a remedy. Is it a remedy?
So the problem with it being a remedy like aspirin will remedy your pain is that THC is fat soluble, not water soluble. So it stays in your system for quite a long time. In fact, Gene, the fatter you are, the longer it stays in your system because of and when you ingest the THC and it gets stored in the fat, the body then slowly releases it back into the bloodstream. So you may only take marijuana once a month, but you are not sober for the next 30 days. And that's one of the challenges in teaching about the effects of marijuana is that people equate it with, say, taking a drink. Well, the next day you may be hungover, but you're not drunk. But you take marijuana and you are not sober for weeks afterwards because it is still slowly releasing into your system. They say for men, if they want to impregnate a woman, they need to be off THC for 6 months before. And so that's a long period of time for this drug to clear from your system. So when people take it for insomnia or anxiety, and then say they stop and they feel the effects of their insomnia or anxiety, what they're feeling is withdrawal. It is not that the drug is solving their medical condition because they're not actually addressing their underlying medical condition, but they are going through the symptoms of withdrawal. Because with any drug, the more you build up a tolerance to it, and then you feel like you need more in order to achieve the same high that you got the first time. And that building up of more then is what creates such problems in your body in trying to get off of the drug.
The basis for an addiction. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Folks, we're talking with Anne Schlafly. She's also she's chairman of the Eagle Forum, a not-for-profit organization. Anne, you want to explain your other books, where we can find them, your website, how we reach you?
Thank you, Jean. My organization is called Eagle Forum. It was founded by my mother, Phyllis Schlafly, 60 years ago. It is a fabulous volunteer organization of chapters across the country that care about issues at the local, state, and national level. We're conservative. We do the three-legged stool of conservatives: fiscal responsibility, strong national defense, and good family policy. Our website is eagleforum.org. It's where you can find my book, Throwing Children Under the Cannabis. And yes, I have a couple of other books that I think are quite fun. And the funny one, we do need humor in our life. I mean, we've got some serious issues, Gene, but we gotta have some humor. And that is How to Speak Liberal. And that's where I investigate these words that the left has come up with and say, what is it that they actually mean? They're trying to redefine our language, redefining marriage, redefining male and female, and, what it means. We thought we had these biological truths, and they come along and say that it's just a feeling of the moment is what it is. But no, so I have a little fun with language on that.
Hell, that's good. Hey, explain Eagle Forum as well.
So Eagle Forum is a network of chapters across the country. And we were founded on the idea that Males and females are not interchangeable. If you go back to the feminist movement, that was their whole idea, was that males and females are interchangeable in every situation, which is why they wanted to put females on the front line in the combat and subject to the draft. Well, we oppose that because that would only weaken our military and make our enemies stronger. And then, of course, the logical extension of interchangeability of males and females is this nutty transgender movement, which says that you can wake up one day and decide that God made a mistake. Well, guess what, Gene? God never makes a mistake.
That's for darn sure. He's right more often than he's wrong. I'll tell you that much. One of the things that amazed me about your book is you make even a reference to crime, the criminal wrongdoing in this nation, and the propensity of the statistics having a correlation again to the use or misuse of marijuana and THC products. Can you expound upon that a bit? I find that very interesting.
I know it'll come as a shock to you, but if you open a pot shop in a neighborhood, crime increases. You're shocked, aren't you?
No, what a concept. Yeah, right.
But here's the problem, is that the legality of marijuana has made the illegal more attractive. And because it gives the illegal a veneer of legality. If you're just walking down the street, you don't know whether that local pot shop is a legal pot shop selling legal marijuana or an illegal selling illegal marijuana. Now, why is that important for states? Is because states sold the idea of legalizing marijuana with people are going to do it anyway. Yeah. Let's legalize it, tax it, and then we can have a nice revenue stream. Well, it turns out that the legal marijuana is more expensive because they pay taxes than the illegal marijuana, which doesn't have to pay taxes. And so then the states, particularly California, has had this problem. They're not getting their expected revenue. And after all, where does this expected revenue go to? How is it spent by the state? You create sin taxes. You want then people to sin and use more of these bad things, and then they get in trouble, and then you have to increase your social services with state money to take care of the people who you've now addicted. Now, that is a lose-lose situation as far as I'm concerned.
I can't imagine how the medical profession, with a lack of clinical trials, documentation to connect the illness to the THC marijuana remedy. Show me some linkage there. And we're quickly on board to approve or adopt that as a medicine for cure. The problem I have today is that not only do you don't see it, but it's directly related to some criminal wrongdoing. You had reported in your book about 30% of the criminal activities involving the shooting incidences in schools and the younger folks in shooting incidences in and around schools. At least 30%, probably more, were on THC or marijuana at the time of their wrongdoing. I can't believe how high that is. And, I used to enjoy a good drink. I stopped drinking 22 years ago because I didn't learn my lesson and I went a little too far. Now I stay off it completely. I'm glad I did. But the fact of the matter is, whether it's alcohol or marijuana or anything else for that matter, I don't enjoy being controlled by another substance. Here's my only substance. It's called coffee. And I'm sorry. I plead guilty. You got me 1 or 2 cups a day. That's all you get out of me. But let that be my sin. But the other stuff that triggers you to go further into losing control over your own wellness, not to mention causing harm to others, to me, is a step too far. What say you?
So the younger you are that you start marijuana, the worse the consequences. And it seems, and teenage boys seem to be particularly susceptible to the lures of this drug. And if they start younger, they tend to get more addicted, and the consequences are more profound. So, and they tend to be heavier users, the teenagers. And heavy use of marijuana uh, brings on the cannabis use disorder, which is a fancy way to say that you're addicted to it and you use it every day. And so right now we have more daily users of marijuana than we have daily drinkers of alcohol. I mean, that to me is quite stunning of the proliferation of marijuana. But these young boys get on the marijuana, and they say, well, it's not really a gateway drug, or that they talk about that. It doesn't matter whether they lead it to other harder substances. Marijuana itself has bad effects. So if you have the cannabis use disorder, you are more susceptible to getting schizophrenia and psychosis. And those are lifetime illnesses that cannot be cured. You are forever psychotic and under schizophrenia once you get it. You never get off of it. So you have a lifetime problem from using marijuana as a teenager. The other thing is with the heavy marijuana use, and you're right, many of the most infamous school shooters, starting with the Columbine, but a lot of other school shooters, were heavy marijuana users. And it turns out that there is, among certain heavy users, suicide ideation with using marijuana. So if you're going to go out and kill yourself, then you think, well, why don't I take everybody else out with me when I go? And that's why we get these horrific school shootings, is because of the use of marijuana by these teenage boys.
I was thinking,
and that's what we need. We need the public, to understand how dangerous it is to use marijuana under the age of 25. It's legal in a lot of states at 21 and above, but there's a loophole because you can get so-called medical marijuana at age 18.
Well, medicine was never packaged in my lifetime as a candy, and it certainly can't be smoked. I don't know what medicine you smoke.
No.
Look, I was never really anti-marijuana or cannabis. It didn't, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. I had this cavalier attitude. I stayed away from the argument, so to speak. But now, as I grow older, I'm seeing more impacts, more consequences when used inappropriately, when smoked inappropriately, when eaten inappropriately. And as you led with a minute ago, the Columbine shooting and the dozens of other illegal incidents since then, all of them were impacted or they had some sort of marijuana or THC in their body when tested. There's a correlation, and so we need to look at that. And it draws to a bigger issue that you and I were at a recent event, and it's conservative group of people by nature. And when we were there having a chat, it dawned on me, there's a lot of things in the United States of America right now, stepping back, that seems to be allowed. It's almost like a deep state movement that's pushing these pushing these narratives that weaken our standing, our footing, and our principles, to allow more unrest and instability in our nation itself. The enemy abroad is winning when they say, let's disrupt them from within. And I think that our group, that when we were there, had brought that out. That while President Trump and other leaders focus on the instability around the world, in parallel, we have instability within the United States in our own backyards, regardless of where you are, that needs to be protected and addressed. I find that I find marijuana, therefore, and THC abuse to align with this issue. What say you?
Yes, when you have internal rot, society is on the road to committing suicide. And that's what you worry about with our great nation here at our 250th birthday. Can we do it for another 250 years? Well, we do need to make sure that we don't have an internal rot that destroys the fabric of our society, our cultural institutions, the way our government works. We have to keep, we want to maintain a good society. And the problem with the proliferation of marijuana is that it harms the next generation. You then get boys who have no ambition and are just stoners in their parents' basement. Now, what does that do for the success of our country if our next generation is living in the parents' basement?
Boy, how many veterans I've spoken to who've taken on recruitment jobs. Within the last 6 years in particular, you can see people who've totally given up on America, lounging around on their couch, taking an extra toke on their little cannabis stick. And then you've got the others who are working hard to defend this nation. And I'm trying to figure out what it's going to take to get these couch potatoes remotivated to getting back into productivity for our American system and way of life. It's
well, first they have to get off the drugs.
Yes, ma'am. That's right. That's right. And you've been around quite a bit. You've written a few books. You want to explain some of the other books you've written?
So I wrote a book called "Is Our Constitution in Jeopardy?" And that book, and the reason I wrote the book is that if you've been around conservative circles, you probably have many copies of the pocketbook Constitution. This little tiny book that you can spring out and say, oh, but Article 2, Section 1 says this. But the problem is you got your pocket Constitution there. Yeah.
I heard you. I'm always ready for a reference. Go ahead.
Here's the problem with that. The print's too fine and people don't really understand it. And we are in a society because of our phone that you need to give people information in very bite-sized bits. So what I do in this book is that it is an answer and question game. And on the first page, you get the answer, and then you have to guess the question of what is the constitutional reference? And I take it through the history of the Constitution, the writing, what's actually in the document, the Bill of Rights, the ratification, and all of that. So you can get a thumbnail bit of the whole history of the founding of our country. And when I give the question, which is the answer to it, I have the exact quote from the Constitution underneath, so that you can get yourself in a situation of understanding what our founding principles are, what it is to be an American, and the rights that we hold so dear. Because one of the things I discovered with the COVID shutdown is that Americans did not understand their rights. No one can force them to quarantine them in their homes. And yet people were allowing that to happen, closing their businesses. And so we need to go back to first principles. And in this anniversary year of our country, it's so important to go back to first principles. So is our Constitution in jeopardy? Question mark is the book to teach as a teaching tool for all ages of learning our principles.
Well, if it is in jeopardy, there's been no greater challenge than this past decade, as there's been an acceleration in challenging our Constitution and our constitutional republic, the democracy it sits in. It's to me uh, amazing, and just to see how the disparate forces within the administrative side, the legislative side, and now the judiciary have all misbehaved in different ways. And for some strange reason, we're on our 250th anniversary. There's no small coincidence. Either the founding fathers were brilliant beyond cognition, or
Yes.
they were, and I suspect they weren't taking cannabis at that time, like the way they, or they just fell into it, because the fact of the matter is we've survived longer than any other nation in the world. And there's no
Yes, but
small
we have a mayor of New York who's just announced that he's going to seize the property of any landlord he doesn't like.
Yeah, I saw that. That's obscene. The question is, what will we do? He's going to want to hand out free marijuana and THC gummies to everybody because he doesn't want them stepping up, protesting, and showing resistance. The
Yeah,
real American.
stoned people do not protest.
That's correct. Maybe that's the connection. But the truth is, our Constitution even talks about, and you know this as a history major, that there's in the Constitution there's an allowance for individuals to step up to remedy the very government that is misbehaving and mistreating them. There is room for that.
We have the right to petition.
Yes, ma'am. And I think Donald Trump, he's drinking water out of a fire hose with the issues he's been dealing with. And after Donald Trump is gone, will he have created a new era, a reformation, a repair to the ills of the last decade or two since Carter, Obama, and Clinton, and then Biden? I sense America, by its recent vote last night, even in Texas, watching Paxton win in the Republican primary against incumbent Senator John Cornyn. Paxton winning because of Trump's endorsement sends a message again, 100% of the time, that Donald Trump's endorsements seem to pay off. I hope to finish my thought that sober Americans come forward and remedy these wrongdoers from carrying the torch, like you mentioned, Mondami is doing up in New York. It's a destruction of our city. It's no small coincidence. I'm down here in Florida, and property prices are going through the roof, and the acreage between homes is disappearing, and there's a lot of folks from the north coming here. I'd rather they stay where they are and fix their problem in their backyard and not run from it. I think that's what really America is all about.
Yes, and I have often wondered why other countries across the world did not just follow the American example. Here we have presented a form of government and a system of liberties for the people that has been so incredibly successful that many people want to come to the United States and put down roots here. Well, why can't they make their countries just as wonderful as America?
Boy, you hit the nail on the head. After all, we left Great Britain and created a nation here on the Americas because we couldn't work under the monarchy or kingship anymore. This autocratic environment, the concept of taxation without representation, finally blew up, and We created an entity of our own, which hopefully outlives you and me for our children and grandchildren. And really, we started the conversation on the health side of things regarding marijuana and cannabis and THC products. To me, is a distraction from our ability to continue to keep this country in its pure form. What say you? Am I okay with that?
There are many, many issues facing us and many problems that we're trying to solve. I took on the marijuana issue because it seemed like a sleeper to me. 40 states now have some kind of legal marijuana. It's not legal on the federal level, but they're certainly pushing to make it legal. And we've not had a national conversation of, is this something that we want to do as a society to allow our children to be addicted to this harmful substance? And I think because of that, I just saw an opportunity to explain matters because no one else was doing it. No one else was really speaking up on this. People were saying, oh, well, let the cancer patients have a little peace. And I'm not worried about the cancer patients. I'm worried about the children, because that's who the companies are marketing to with the candy. Now, are there plenty of other problems in this country? Oh, yes. And do we need to work on all of them? Yes. And we continue. And that's one reason why Eagle Forum has always been very broad-based in the issues that we take on, because we take on any issue that affects the family, because you don't have a strong country unless you have strong family units, because the family is the building block.
The eagle is in our forum.
Yeah, I like that. That's cute. I've been admiring it the whole show here.
He keeps guard over me, along with our Lord. In our last few minutes, Anne, give us a summary of your book again, folks. The Throwing Children Under the Cannabis by Anne Schlafly. Give us a summary on that. Where do we reach you? How do we get to your website? How do we buy the book?
Thank you. I'm available at eagleforum.org. All my information is there. I am selling the book, but I have a special cut rate if you buy quantities, because I want it as a manual for how you can protect your community. What happened to me is that here I am living in a red state. It's a really nice community, and we have pot shops everywhere. And we need, as a community, to say, this is not beneficial to us. It's not beneficial because of the odor. It's not beneficial because of the increase in homeless population. It's not beneficial for what it does to our children in the schools. And so that, and of course, the information that needs to go out to parents on the effect of their unborn children and their small children of when they have marijuana in the house. So what I believe we need is this manual so that you can make a difference in your community. The book has action steps of things that you can do to limit the marijuana, because that's the first step. In all of the social movements of the past, they have to start with educating the public, and the public finding out that, no, this is a bad idea. Let's start putting limitations. So, for example, why should your community allow a 24-hour drive-through cannabis shop? That just seems all wrong.
I know some things that need to be open 24 hours. It wasn't cannabis that came to mind.
Yeah. We didn't even get to the problems of driving under the influence of marijuana, which is a huge problem right now in roadside accidents.
Indeed. Especially by illegal aliens posing as truck drivers. Thank God for Secretary Duffy kind of clamping down on things in transportation as well. Okay, folks, eagleforum.org. Go there. You'll find Anne Schlafly's contact information. That's the book, Throwing Children Under the Cannabis. And get your copy now or order in quantity, as she mentioned. And so, Anne, on that note, let's close. Thank you very much for joining me here today.
Gene, it was such a pleasure to be with you.
It's not goodbye. I think it's see you later.
I hope so.
Likewise. And likewise to all of you as well. Thank you for joining us here today. More of an insight on cannabis, marijuana, THC, less about a political opinion, just an insight of what the suggestions are by doctors and medicine to use this product for treatment with no known scientific, epistemic information, clinical trials, and data at our disposal to come to the decision that cannabis, THC, marijuana could be or should be used as a remedy, a treatment. I don't think you've gotten a doctor to give you a prescription lately for it. You may have received a suggestion from them, but you certainly haven't gotten a prescription. So that's it. Thank you, Anne, again. And thank all of you for joining us on another episode of Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. See you soon. Relationships matter because people buy people. And that's why I buy Eddie Zarin Insurance of the Zarin Insurance Agency in Pensacola, Florida, a family-owned business with over 50 years in the business, and they treat people the right way. From homeowners insurance to contractors insurance, condo insurance, commercial insurance, all the different coverages that are out there, and of course auto insurance, they've got you covered. They worry about you first. You're more than a policy number. You're a person who they're watching out for, not when the sun is shining, but after the hurricane has left. If you want real service with real savings, contact Eddie Zarin at the Eddie Zarin Insurance Agency. www.zarininsurance.com. Give them a call today. You'll be glad you did when you do.